This is the podcast of Beyond Governance with Dr. Nimrod Mbele. This podcast is brought to you by Productivity SA, inspiring a competitive South Africa. Dr. Nimrod Mbele is an academic, a successful businessman who has a talent to simplify business and make it relevant beyond the boardroom. Catch Dr. Nimrod Mbele live in Beyond Governance Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Beyond Governance is brought to you by Productivity SA, inspiring a competitive South Africa.
Hello everybody once again. My name is Nimrod Mbele. It is such a beautiful day and I promise you to have an exciting show. First and foremost, let me just thank my colleagues Steve Marks, Sia and Tabo. These folks have kept you guys entertained over the past couple of hours. And I hear Sasha is not in. How I wish she was here. The studio is not the same without her. Sasha, wherever you are, I know you're listening. Hi. Over and above that, let me just thank Vusi, who is my technical support here. Without him, the show won't go as it should. And if you have missed out our last week conversation, which was quite interesting, please do log on, go to our website and look at the podcast and really give us your views, because it's quite important from time to time to be reflective of some of the issues that you've talked about. The idea essentially is to grow the product, is to grow the show, and we can only grow for as long as you give us your input, which are valued very, very much so and highly. Please, if you want to drop me an email for today, you know our email line is nimrod@chai.co.za, and that SMS line are also quite important, which is your 34519, and the Twitter handle, of course, is @ChaiFM. Today's installment is twofold. We're going to have a conversation with a gentleman called Ms. Pala Modley, who is the CEO of Olympia International. And over and above that, would have our anchor respondent in studio, a lovely lady, I must say. Her name is Monica Singer, and we'll get to Monica quite a bit because there's quite a bit and beautiful stuff that is in store for you. And I believe Mr. Pala Modley is on the line. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Mbele. Are you well?
How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How's Cape Town?
Hey, well, Cape Town's great, you know. Right now, I should have been on the beach with my feet in the water, but here I am talking to you.
No, thank you very much for taking time.
Not joking, Cape Town's all good, eh?
Well, you never know. You never know. These things do happen, you know. But anyway, let's not take much of your time. Mr. Modley, could you just maybe tell the listeners what Olympia International Paints is all about?
We're a manufacturer of architectural and industrial paints. So typically you'd paint a house, a commercial building, a hospital, a school, a boat, any industrial infrastructure, and the like. And we manufacture all of these products into the market. Okay,
that sounds brilliant. Obviously, you are a seasoned entrepreneur from the painting point of view, but could you maybe just share with the listeners out there as to how you got to know about Productivity SA, because I believe they have made such a huge impact on your business.
Yes, indeed. I also belong to a black business organization called WECBOF, West Cape Business Opportunities Forum. A bit of background on that, it's an NGO that basically focuses on capacitating and improving various aspects of small and medium enterprises, you know, so that these businesses could perform in the normal economy. And Productivity SA, in fact, introduced Workplace Challenge and invited members of WECBOF to participate in it, and I was one of the respondents that chose to participate. Yeah.
And could you just maybe briefly give us a sense as to what this program is all about and what does it do internally? Because at the end of the day, I think what the listeners may want to know is the extent to which your company has been catapulted to different heights. Because we need to really escalate some of these innovative and creative ideas, which, amongst others, have been brought by companies such as Productive SA?
Yeah. Look, I think that that's what I think. I think we all know that we live in a different paradigm when it comes to manufacturing, especially in the skill sets that we have available to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually incumbent on many businesses now, whether you're small, medium, or large, to actually improve the skill sets and participation of your employees. Gone are the days when you could just move employees from pillar to post. There's got to be an empowerment prerogative. And I think one of the big pluses of the workplace challenge is that it actually devolves responsibility down to the factory floor, to your different departments and divisions, where many of your employees basically become involved and take responsibility for some of the processes for which they are intimately involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, there's also an upward participation. So what happens is that many of the employees, through this empowerment process, are able to then contribute to the direction the company has to go, to many of the decisions you have to take in managing processes, in managing a company. You better understand your strengths and weaknesses. And I think that the biggest thing is that from our own point of view, it actually empowered our employees to participate
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day running of the business, to the point where an entrepreneur like myself could focus his energy and effort in developing and growing the market. You might have the best factory in the world. If you cannot sell a product, it's of no consequence. So if we are given the time to basically get into the market, capture a significant part of market share, with the full knowledge that we have strength behind us, supporting the endeavor, then I think we have the makings of a successful enterprise. And this has been the biggest advantage we've found
Mm-hmm.
in implementing the workplace challenge.
Mm-hmm. I think you've mentioned something very, very important, Mr. Moodley. The fact that now, because you have empowered, you have delegated responsibilities towards your employees. You as an entrepreneur, you are now able to focus on growing the business, because half the time, your typical one-man show, you do everything and you don't have space nor time to really grow the business, even if the business has the potential. So for me, that's quite a serious point that you've mentioned. And is it working for you so far?
Well, look, we implemented Workplace Challenge around about 2004, 2005, thereabouts. So we've sort of got about 10 years behind us on it. In the last 10 years, our turnover has grown maybe about 400%. Our number of employees have doubled, literally. So sure, it's working, yeah.
No, it's good to know. It's good to know. For any would-be entrepreneur who would want to become into the productivity SA loop, what is it that you can recommend for them?
Look, I will just maybe also tell you one other thing, is that in 2003 we implemented ISO 9001, which is a quality management system. And the biggest challenges with a world-class system like ISO 9001 is to basically get the buy-in of all of your staff. People need to understand that and things like that. And I think that Workplace Challenge, together with ISO 9001, it actually, the program itself helped us inculcate the principles of a quality management system into the workforce. So we rapidly upskilled our workforce into a platform where we were basically world-class manufacturers. We operate like a world-class manufacturer. With regard to what it can do for other businesses, look, today in the economy, in the marketplace, there is no room for anyone who's just trying to do something. You either do it right or you don't do it at all, because if you don't do it right, you don't have the right product in the marketplace that has gained market acceptance, you're not going to be able to grow a brand or get product into the market. So I think it's an imperative for businesses to start to incorporate programs like Workplace Challenge. Especially in the absence of many of these programs in the formal education system. One of my big bugbears is that I believe that this program should be implemented at school level, so that kids that are coming out of school could actually get the understanding of what the economy demands in terms of productivity. So for small business to grow and succeed, you've got to become productive. We talk about China and India being economies that are just raging out in the global marketplace. We can effectively compete against them. I've actually exported product into Southeast Asia, the Middle East, competing directly with the Chinese, purely because we are able to play them at their game. Just by becoming a lot more productive, keeping our costs at a certain level, we are able to compete in that market. So I believe that every manufacturer in South Africa should be really focused in on improving productivity. And it's an empowering process, because what happens is if you upskill your employees as well, you are able to then just produce that much more. You have a better understanding, and you can, there's this whole thing, stick to the knitting, focus on what you know best. If I can spend the time out growing and developing the market with the knowledge that I have a competent workforce that are able to produce the goods, can you imagine where we could get to?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Pale. One thing that I really take from your conversation is around the extent to which your company has become so competent to a point where you are able to compete with the Chinese and exporting some of these products. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there due to time constraint. And thank you very much for taking time.
Oh, cool, man. Very nice chatting with you.
You're welcome very much, sir. I appreciate it.
Adios.
Well, you heard it there, folks. It's quite interesting to see how some businesses evolve from time to time, and just to bring in Monica, maybe taking a cue from the conversation which Mr. Moodley pointed out, the role of education. And it's something that we take for granted because we often assume that our output, our graduates will understand basic things such as productivity, efficiency and effectiveness. And he says, in his view, productivity has to become part and parcel of education. And frankly speaking, I agree with him.
Totally.
I haven't really noticed or seen even a module at the university level that speaks about productivity and efficiency, and how you become productive, how you become competitive. Would you agree with me there?
More than that, it's very sad to think that even at university we hardly teach people about the financial markets. You would think that I was trained as a chartered accountant and I knew very little about the stock market. So what we do is that we have now committed major resources, not only at university level, but we're going back to grassroots. And we're saying we need to start educating the kids to understand finance. Because what is it that when you need a doctor, when you're sick, you go to a doctor. When you're in trouble, you go to a lawyer. But you always need to know about money.
Exactly, and it's something that happens every day.
And when do you actually get trained about money?
Okay.
Have you ever thought about that?
No, exactly, and something has to be taught from
day dot.
Kindergarten.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing as an obsession. We're passionate about educating everybody about finances and money.
Well, on that score, Monica, let me just take a step back and Pep, I've looked at your very impressive resume, and I don't think I'm better positioned to articulate it. For the listener out there, could you just please tell us, who is Monica? What does she do? Before we get to all the technical issues around financial market trends, strategies and mitigation, who is Monica?
Okay, I'm a very complex person, but I can tell you I'm very passionate about the financial markets, and I'm also very passionate about women issues, especially girls, and about education. Definitely about South Africa. I immigrated from Uruguay. You can hear from my accent, it's Spanish. And I'm very grateful that South Africa gave me everything that I am today. So I always feel that I have to give back, and this is for me a land of opportunity. And Strate, we created Strate. So I run Strate. I'm the CEO of Strate. And what is Strate? Strate is a company that is an essential component for the financial markets. We keep a very low profile, even though without us, the financial markets wouldn't operate. So you wouldn't think that the stock exchange could not operate without Strate. But that's exactly the case.
In fact, when you told me about it, I was like, "Gee,
I know. I know.
This is groundbreaking."
Yeah.
On that score, can you just maybe take a break and we'll come back
Yes.
on that particular point,
Yes,
Monica?
for sure.
This is Beyond Governance with Dr. Nimrod Mbele. Beyond Governance is brought to you by Productivity SA, inspiring a competitive South Africa.
Welcome back. This is Nimrod Mbele. In the studio, I have an immaculate lady, Monica Singer, who is our guest. Monica, she is the CEO of Strate. And before we went to the break, Monica was about to tell us more about the IT infrastructure which is behind the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And yeah, can you reflect back on that, Monica?
Okay, so the stock exchange has got a technology that mainly what it does, it matches the buyers to the sellers. That's it. So once you want to buy shares, you pick up the phone or internet and you put an order to buy, let's say, 100 Anglos. So the technology matches you with someone that wants to sell. Once the match is done, then after certain processes, the information comes to Strate. And what Strate does is that it's able to communicate with the person that the broker, not the broker, but the bank that is holding your shares in dematerialized form, meaning digitized. We also with the bank that is holding the cash of the person that is going to pay for this transaction. And after the technology confirms that the shares are there, that the cash is there, we settle. We are able to transfer ownership of the shares and the cash simultaneously, and it's final and irrevocable. So there's never a risk that your shares move and you didn't get your cash, or that the cash moves and you didn't get the ownership. We also keep the record of ownership of all the investors in South Africa. We do this not only for the JSE equity transactions, we do it for the bond transactions on the JSE, we do it for off-market trades, meaning trades not on the JSE, and we also do it for money market instruments. The other thing that we also do very, very well is that, for example, when dividends are paid by companies, we are able to facilitate this process. And as you know, dividends paid are in the billions. And this is done seamlessly. It's done on the day of payment, all electronic, into the accounts of the investors.
Whoa, this is just getting too exciting. You know? Just a quick, because I had a meeting with one of the entities that I'm assisting in to draw, shareholders agreement and stuff like that, which also speaks to dividends, and it is just mind-boggling. It is just mind-boggling. And perhaps it's just a back, Monica. You were responsible for the ITC or IT architecture. How did it get to that point? I mean, even let alone how efficient this thing works, because I've picked it up elsewhere that the Strate IT infrastructure consistently maintains an average of up to 99.0, almost like 100%,
Yes.
99.95 accuracy.
Yes.
How did it get to, who was behind the design, the thought, the thinking process behind the IT infrastructure?
It was really 19 years ago. I was employed as the project manager. So my contract said to bring electronic settlement to the transactions on the JSE. So I thought, okay, I'm a chartered accountant. What do I know of technology, project management? I really knew very little of the nitty-gritty. So what I did is, let's not reinvent the wheel, and let's make sure that we implement this project, which was the biggest change management project in the financial markets. We had to implement very quickly. South Africa at that time was categorized as one of the worst emerging markets in terms of settlement and operational risk. So we had a burning platform. We had to do this. So what I did is I went around the world to consult with all the countries in the world that had done this already. And then I was able to assess the technology that they had implemented. So we did an assessment of which was the best technology. And we didn't decide to design the technology. We said, let's buy it. Let's not reinvent the wheel. So that's why we bought at that time the Swiss technology. And the Swiss technology had been developed by the Indian technology company. So that's what we did. And we brought this technology to South Africa, and it's still working incredibly well. And the messaging system that we use is called SWIFT, which is a messaging system that is very secure. It's only used by the banks in the world. And therefore, we were one of the first countries in the world to be allowed to use this messaging system for securities messages. So we broke world first in many areas that we actually implemented. And I think that the chutzpah, would you say, that I had was that because I wasn't really aware of how the markets were operating for 100 years in the paper-based environment, I was able to apply ingenuity, and I knew that there was a sense of urgency. At that time, when I started the project, there were 4,000 trades a day on the JSE. Today, there are 250,000 trades a day on average.
Goodness, that's quite a huge
Yes.
limp.
And not only that, 4,000 trades a day, and most of them were failing to settle. Settle meaning that delivery versus payment was not happening on time. Now, since we implemented Strate, every single trade since the beginning of time, meaning 18 years ago, has settled on time every time. So we have now achieved the accolade to be amongst the top central securities depositories in the world amongst developed countries. So we are now amongst, if you look at the ranking by the World Economic Forum, South Africa is categorized amongst the best in the world for the financial markets.
Could this be the reason as to why we survived the crisis?
Exactly. We survived the crisis. You know that the Johannesburg Stock Exchange never closed down during that week in 2008.
I remember that.
Remember, 15 September 2008. Who will ever forget? That week, many stock exchanges around the world had to close down because of panic. We didn't, because we had implemented risk management principles that were way in advance of what other markets had developed. Because when I went around the world and I saw what other markets had developed, I thought, we can leapfrog what other countries have done.
So therefore, there isn't a linear trajectory of development.
Yes.
If you go out there and assess what are the best practices,
Yes.
take those,
Yes.
contextualize them in your environment,
Exactly.
and in a way you are able to predict and literally
Yes.
avoid the glitches.
Correct. And also think big. You know, we used to give presentations to the investors in London, and they used to be horrified because they used to compare what we were planning to implement in South Africa against what they had in London. And they used to say, why are you wanting to run before you can walk? And I said, why not? They were sort of getting jealous, you know, that we were going to surpass some of the risk management principles that they had at that time in London. And I thought, why not? And that's exactly what we did. We did things that were bold, crazy, but they withstood the test of time. And today, really have a look at the rankings in terms of auditing and accounting standards, in terms of financial markets. We are amongst the top in the world. And that's why, yes, you were commenting to me about the risk of getting this junk status, but our financial markets are solid. And that's why the turnover in the stock exchange every year keeps on growing. And that's why if you have a look at the website, Strate Pty Limited, strate.co.za, you will see our financial statements, how solid we are, because of the fact that volumes keep on increasing beyond our expectations.
Well, this is quite interesting. If you've just joined us, I've got a wonderful lady here, Monica Singer, who is the CEO of Strate Pty, and the issues at hand essentially is about market trends, challenge and mitigation strategies. She's taking us through basically what, you know, as a CEO of Strate, which is a central security depository company which deals with all sorts of complicated issues that I can't even make sense of at some point. You're welcome, please weigh in, give us your thoughts around this particular issue. But Monica, one of the issues that perhaps maybe we spoke about at some point was I want to come back to the issue of leapfrogging. I want to come back to the issue of thinking big. South Africa is so privileged to a point where we are able to compete with the best of the best. One of our issues before in fact, a day or two ago, we spoke about Mervyn King, who at some point sat in one of your boards. Could you just maybe check through that, because I would imagine how Strate perform is somehow linked to a partnership of sort, or advice or support that is getting from gurus of governance in this country and globally.
Absolutely. Everything that happened at Strate happened because of collaboration. Mervyn King was my chairman. He was the best chairman that you could find, because at that time when we were creating Strate, there was quite a lot of animosity between the brokers and the banks. So Mervyn would say that every board meeting was like arbitration meeting, because it was like, imagine all the shareholders were at the meeting, and therefore it was like an annual general meeting every time, and it was very difficult because we were building something very new and there was a lot of fear of change. But he made sure that we built it based on very solid corporate governance structures, and that once again is another key success factor of Strate. But I have to tell you, my board is made up of the most wise people in this industry. Not only my current chairman, Bobby Johnston, who was past chairman of the Stock Exchange, but Russell Lafsha, past CEO of the Stock Exchange, Nikki Newton-King, current CEO of the Stock Exchange, many of the banks, other independent board members, ex-registrar of the Financial Services Board, Rob Barrow. So really, I'm very blessed to be surrounded by a very strong board. It's just that it's a very big challenge for me to be a CEO of such a very high-powered board.
I can imagine.
I have to be on my toes, trust me.
I can imagine, because the next question for me would have been the interface between board and executive, which is often acrimonious, because we know how board has its own ethos, obviously, which naturally ought to represent the interests of the shareholders. And the CEO at some point, obviously, as an executing arm or entity of the corporation, how do you manage those tussles? Because being in a space of the world's best executives who sits at the board, because this is not mediocre board. This is a board of serious businessmen who have been managing entities in their own right, and who sit in numerous boards. How do you navigate those very murky waters?
And lots of businesswomen. They're very powerful women I've got on my board, which is so awesome. It's a very balanced board. I'm a warrior. So my problem is that I'm constantly being sent on how to be less aggressive. Some people need to go on assertive course. I need to go on, on my chairman always says Monica, like shut up now. So it's really hard. I
can imagine.
It's very hard.
And talking of hard, Monica, one of the issues that I'm very passionate about, and I'm happy that you're also equally passionate about, is the extent to which corporates or corporations aren't really a palatable space for women in particular. Because almost like there's this tension. You are expected to lead and be successful, but at the same time you have got societal obligations and responsibilities, which pose a challenge in terms of priorities. How do you navigate the two? Because you can't have them both. One school of thought might say, but in your particular circumstances, because this would obviously assist other women to say it is possible. If Monica can do it, I can do it as well. But obviously we all have our different journeys and our circumstances are different. But there's got to be one or two salient points in your formula which the next CEO can look at and say, look, if Monica can do it, I'll do it too.
I've got two beautiful children, a son, John T., 31, and a daughter, Stephanie, 25. I'm very proud to say one is a lawyer and the other one is an accountant. So I'm very proud to say that they turn out to be normal. Why I say that? Because as and when they were growing up with this lunatic of a mother that was absent from most of the activities, I did not go to the rugby games. I missed some graduations. I even missed some birthdays. I missed a lot of things. But I'm so passionate about Strate. I kept on saying to the kids, I adore you, but I really love my job, and I'm not going to be a lesser mother, but you need to understand that, today I'm going to be in Guatemala giving a lecture to people, and I'm not going to be at your graduation. And they understood, and I think they became more resilient and more independent. So I didn't do much of homework with them, but they became, tough, and they made it. So
the fact that they have already graduated,
yes.
that says a lot.
Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious for me. That's a win formula already.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as a parent, you want to create a space for your kids to be the best you could ever be.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you have, but for you, as a woman.
Yeah.
Those societal pressures,
Yes.
I would imagine in some coffee shops and social gathering,
Yes.
you'd from time to time, I suppose, maybe be questioned as to were you there, were you not there,
Yes.
and how do you survive those kinds of onslaughts, because they're there.
It was hard. First of all, I have to confess, as a mother, and as Jewish mother on top, you carry guilt all through your life. Okay, so only now that they're adults and they made it, I I can let go of guilt. So that's number one. I used to come home sometimes very late, and I would wake up the kids and say, am I a good mommy? And they would say, Mom, not that question again, go to sleep. From my insecurities,
Absolutely.
So number one. Number two, sometimes I would drop my kids at school, and then other mothers would say, we missed you last night. You were not at the ballet or the whatever. And I'm like, okay, Monica, don't say anything. So the one thing I did was that I was a member of the board of the school. I was the treasurer of King David School, because I thought maybe that's my way of giving back.
Absolutely.
And also because the kids wouldn't tell me much of what was going on at school.
Because you already about all.
Exactly.
Somehow,
Yeah, and I thought, okay, if I sit on the board, I'll find out what the hell are they doing. So for many years I sat on the board. It was my way of giving back. I thought, I'm trained as an accountant, and I think I'm going to be more efficient being the treasurer of the school than running the tuck shop. And that's what I did. So I had to work through my guilt and not allow certain voices to affect me.
And one of the issues that I often find it very strange is the extent to which women support each other, especially women executives, because ordinarily corporate has always been a male to male, and white in particular in this country. And we see more and more women being elevated, more and more women given opportunity to find their voices and really assert themselves, which is something that we all fought for. But there's also this tendency of, at least this in my experience, which may not necessarily be a representation of all women, that women tend to suppress each other instead of promoting each other. This is my experience. I'm not sure whether you have seen it in your space. What's your thought around that?
100%. I'm involved in many projects to promote women, and even with my daughter, she kept on saying to me, Mom, even my generation, we are not helping each other. So that's why, being the CEO of Strate, being a woman, I have set an example to know that it's a woman-friendly environment. We are totally flexible. We allow women time out if they need to, and men too. My accountant at the moment had a baby, and he's got as much flexi time, he's a male, as any female will have, because he has to be there for his baby too.
Trust me. Well, I've got the reason to join you guys on that note. Let's take a break. We'll come back after.
This is Beyond Governance with Dr. Nimrod Mbele. Beyond Governance is brought to you by Productivity SA, inspiring a competitive South Africa.
Welcome back. This is Nimrod Mbele, your host. It is now 20:07. In studio, I'm having a conversation with Monica Singer, who is the CEO of Strate Pty Ltd. Before we went to the break, we were talking about some of the challenges that women leaders are experiencing in corporate, and I was quite happy that at some point she shared some of my sentiment as to ordinarily we expect women to be supportive and helping each other, and they tend to oppress each other instead of promoting. But fundamentally, why is that the case? In your own assessment, why is it the case?
I think that women think that there's not enough jobs for other women. I call it the scarcity mentality.
Scarcity mentality.
So
I like that.
So they think that they need to compete with each other. And the sad part is that the one thing we learn in everything we do is that everything is about collaboration. I heard this marvelous study that said that the only reason we have existed, that the universe has been created, is because they went back to study bacteria. And they realized that the reason that we are here today is by the bacteria that existed learned that if they started killing each other, they would all have been decimated. So they realized the bacteria at that time, many millions and millions of years ago, that they had to collaborate to coexist. And that's how the bacteria started multiplying, and that's how we are here today.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you would imagine that we need to be progressing. But how do you move up to that level? Do you think there's enough education that has been done? Because, I mean, you know, the battle of equality, gender equality, would be half won for as long as women find its space. Let alone that, you know, as male, we still need to and really push the envelope in bringing gender to the mainstream.
Yes.
Some of us are really advocates of gender equality because we're brought by single moms.
Yes.
And my mother would have been, well, the toughest person ever. And I would imagine, and based on how she managed her affairs, she would have been the best executive in this time. So we do need to really educate.
Yeah.
What is it that South Africa and the world can do or must do from the curriculum point of view? Because you and I agree that some of this thing has to be started at the educational level, at school level.
Yes.
What is that we need to do to encourage gender mainstreaming, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, one of the initiatives that I think is really good is the Take a Child to Work, because what we need is more role models. When you know that you know, this is one day a year that girls come from schools and they come to the corporate or any work environment, and they get exposed to the workplace, and they can see that women are in the work environment, and then they can achieve and they can study and they can be mothers if they want to, and they can have it all. If you ask me what was your role model, my role model wasn't my mother because she was a housewife. But at 17 I went as an exchange student to America, and so I had been programmed that I was going to get married and have children. And then at 17 I go to America, and my adopted American mom was a school teacher with children. I said, wait a second, if she can be a school teacher with children, I can be anything with children. So imagine when I came back to Uruguay and I said to my parents, sorry, for you, I'm going to university. They nearly had oh no, they had a heart attack, you know, and I had to fight to convince them to come study. So that is the problem, is that society, in a lot of cases, still believes that women were brought up just to have babies, and that's it. So we need to encourage girls to go and find their talents. And if they want to have babies, that's fine, but they mustn't suppress.
Absolutely.
You know,
let it be a choice. It shouldn't be an imposition from society.
Yes.
Because that's how it happens. Because this is where a lot of anger comes in, because we often suppress these things, and God knows what happens. No wonder why there's just so many issues around family violence, because and if you suppress certain things, they manifest in a manner that we may not really agree with.
Yes, and also many cultures encourage the girls to get married too early. You know, luckily the new generations are getting married much later, which is better. The girls must go and study, they must realize their professions, go and work, and then get married and have children. I'm sure that the religious part of my community would not agree with this, you know, but I truly believe that girls must self-realize first.
Absolutely. Talking of girls, Monica, one of the issues that I've picked up from your very extensive resume is the fact that you work for World Bank as a technical director. To what extent has this particular role influenced your current position, one, but also the ability to juxtapose your family life as well as a business life?
Well, at the World Bank I went to Washington, so I took my whole family to Washington. So it was quite traumatic to take the family all the way to Washington. So and my husband at that time, he became the house husband. So it was a very traumatic experience because he used to have his own job and everything. So that decision was very traumatic for the family. Yeah, so it was very traumatic. What can I tell you? Then we came back. I didn't enjoy the World Bank, but it taught me a lot of resilience. Washington, it's very cold. It snows most of the winter, and it's very hot in summer. So the weather was terrible. The World Bank is very bureaucratic, so it was also very tough. So, if you survive the World Bank, you can survive anything. So coming back again to South Africa and then being asked to implement this change management process, I think that I had the tools to survive anything.
The reason why I'm asking this point, because, I think you're hitting on the nail when you're saying World Bank is very bureaucratic. But in a bureaucratic environment, there are clear processes and systems which ordinarily I would imagine had influence in choosing or identifying the IT platform that you talked about, because it's all about interface. It's all about how different bits and pieces of a transaction fit together, and how do you still ensure an output even though it is bureaucratic. Because
I'm sorry to tell you, the only thing I learned, and I swore myself never again to build a company with any bureaucracy.
Oh, okay.
Because the bureaucracy is not healthy. It's you have to have open systems and open architecture and transparency and communication and free thinking, and more technology is evolving exactly in that way. Take Linux. Linux is a project that was developed from the collaboration without borders, without red tape. So the more red tape you have, the less innovation you have. So bureaucracy is bad in every possible way. So there's nothing.
You're the very first person who ever told me bureaucracy is very bad in a person, which is quite interesting, though. Because I probably have, I'm still caught up in the Weberian model of bureaucracy, which is where it stems from. But I totally agree with you. But I thought initially in an IT space, this is where perhaps maybe because it's all about the integration, is all about how different bits and pieces of any configuration fit together to a point where you're able to, at least that was my thinking process.
Maybe we're confusing what is bureaucracy, which is unnecessary rules and regulations and layers of management that you have to consult, to, for example, when you implement technology, you have a system development life cycle that you follow, and that is, the ISO, the standards. Standards are absolutely needed. So let's not confuse bureaucracy.
Then I'm happy.
With standards.
I'm happy to hear
that.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm happy
standards
to hear that.
Standards are key, but not bureaucracy.
Okay. No. I'm happy to hear that. And talking of standards, one of the issues that perhaps maybe it would be useful for us to engage and share with the listener out there, coming back to the issue of regulations. Earlier on you've said South African market, it's the regulation, especially on the financial side, it is one of the best.
Yes.
And hence we're able to navigate the financial crisis.
Yes.
Maybe share with us your role in relation to FSB, for an example.
Okay.
What is the interface? Because what you do somehow has that regulatory compliance requirement.
Correct.
Could you just take us through that?
Yes. Part of being able to get the license to operate as a central securities depository, the FSB, which is the Financial Services Board, gave a condition that we had to be also the regulators of the CSD participants. The CSD participants are the custodian banks and others. And we had to create a division called our supervision division, and this division of Strate regulates, supervises the banks in the custody area. So we had to write the rules and regulations, the legislation, input, and this is a huge responsibility, as you know. With power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
So not only do we run the technology and we have to achieve, where failure is not an option, we also have this obligation to monitor what the banks are doing in terms of the custody records of the investors. So that is a role that we're very proud of, because we also know that the reason why the World Economic Forum says that we are amongst the best in the world is because of the the work that we do in drafting these high standards in regulation.
Monica, maybe let's just take a pause there and we'll come back after this.
This is Beyond Governance with Dr. Nimrod Mbele. Beyond Governance is brought to you by Productivity SA, inspiring a competitive South Africa.
Welcome back. This is Nimrod. We're now approaching almost the end of our show. In studio, I have a very interesting a thought leader in my view. Her name is Monica Strate, if you've just joined us. And Monica, before we went to the break, we're talking about FSB issues because they're quite important, which has been the basis which sort of provided the shock absorbers from a meltdown perspective. And you say, your company is almost like a thought leader or a trailblazer in as far as that is concerned, which I think is quite remarkable. And I would imagine those folks that are doing MBA and stuff like that, you are a typical case study.
Yeah, no, there's been case studies being written by some business schools about what we've done. Absolutely.
Well, I guess they beat me to it because I was about to suggest to write one about you. Yeah. Anyway, Monica, one of the issues that is often an issue for South Africa, about South Africa, is this pessimistic view that everything is just, going, haywire. Everything's just gone, belly up, which is quite unfortunate because this is a time in which we all need to be, putting our heads together to salvage the economy, because we all have that responsibility to make sure that the economy gets out of this impasse. I would imagine your company is among those. Could you just maybe tell us about your views about South Africa?
I feel very, very positive and very passionate about South Africa. We have such a strong corporate governance, one of the best in the world. And as we know, when you have strong value system as a person, as a country, you can only build from there. And that's why we have a strong constitution. And that's why we saw what happened with Nkandla. And that's why we're going to see even more. And people mustn't give up hope, because everybody knows that eventually the truth will prevail, because it's in our blood. And because we, as South Africans, we liked the truth will come out, and we're totally passionate and committed to each other. We are the Rainbow Nation, and I love the fact that South Africans make a plan. And we really do.
It's true, right?
Isn't it true?
It's very true. We all make a plan.
We always do. It's amazing. Even out of the most crazy situations, we come out and people say, how did they do it? We don't even know how we do it, but we make miracles. And I really think this is the land of miracles.
No, I definitely agree with you on one of the issues that you raised about the best constitution. We never thought that the principle of constitution eventually will prevail.
Yes. Because
we always been told that we have this best constitution, and without really understanding exactly what does it mean.
Yeah.
And when the executive undermines some of the constitutionally based structures, such as Section 9 structures. So I couldn't agree with you more. The fact that you have got this well-renowned constitution, we were able to really address our challenges. But is the world seeing us that way? Because everywhere you go, it's all about doom and gloom.
I don't think so. You can see it just in the stock exchange. The volumes are growing, so that means that there's still confidence.
Absolutely. So, for me, that's quite an important indicator. The fact that, everything from the stock exchange is still booming, it may not really boom at the level that we want to, at least there's no regress.
Exactly.
So everything, it seems to be, obviously we need to work harder to make sure that it happens and the economy turns around.
Exactly.
I don't know. Monica, thank you very much.
You.
It has been absolutely beautiful to have you.
My pleasure.
How I wish we had more time.
Thank you.
For those who have just joined us or missed this particular program, please go to the website and download the podcast. Until we meet again, it has been an absolute pleasure. Nimrod here, out. Bye.
Catch Dr. Nimrod Mbele live and Beyond Governance Tuesdays at 6 p.m.